we'd like to introduce a little bit about our topic today. It's really around representation in AI. So the World Economic Forum shares that women account for 25% of AI specialists. And here's a chance to hear today about opportunities and challenges for women in AI. As well, you might have caught our promo videos where we shared AI in one word. So we'll kick today off by asking each panelist to share what is AI in one word. Nicole?
To me, it is still magic.
To me, it's adaptive.
Exciting.
Oh, can we hear Natalie?
Hello? Can you hear me?
No.
Oh no.
Oh, we can hear you now.
Yeah, great. Yeah, for me it's exciting.
Transformative.
And for me, it's about opportunity. And now we'll welcome you to participate. If you're online or also here in person, we'll be using Mentimeter today. Please grab your phones. I know it might be the first time you hear this. And go ahead and scan the QR code if you can see it, or you can go to menti.com and enter the code 67112851. And you can join us and answer what is your AI in one word. We got a thumbs up. That's exciting. I didn't know that it did that. Confusing. I love it. Skynet, opportunity, possibility, opportunities, exciting, efficiency, potential, accessible, data. Ooh, adventurous. I like this one. Okay, now we're testing the limit of my contacts because I don't think I can read that small now. Helpful, scale, scary, learning. Perfect. It's so great to hear from you. It sounds like you have a lot of people that agreed with us, but also some new areas. So let's hope we can look into this a little bit. And our next Mentimeter question that we'd like to ask you is, have you worked with AI? Oh, it's so fun to watch these come in. I feel like I'm on
We need one of those clocks. Ding, dum, 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 dum.
She's braver than I for singing.
Dum, 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 dum.
I think this might turn off.
Is it frozen now?
Should I press it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Same with this one.
Okay, perfect. It's great to see that a lot of us have explored with AI, but we also have some people that are brand new to it. So hopefully we can add some inspiration for you today and just hear a little bit more from our experts who are very comfortable in this field. I did mention a lot already, idealo. So I want to share a little bit more about what idealo is. So idealo is one of the leading comparison platforms for product and price, as well as for travel and flight offers in Europe. In 2000, we started with the mission to help consumers make the best buying decisions. And today, in the heart of Berlin, over 1,000 employees from 60 nations help our users find the best price offer at the best price online. And I think we're ready to get kicking off with our questions. So my lovely panelists, Natalie, I think we lost Natalie on the middle screen. Sorry, one technical issue. Very exciting.
Do you still hear me?
What happens when you over prepare? We got here really early to be ready.
Okay.
Okay, I think we can see you over here, so we can get started. So the first question that we have for the panelists are, what are the potentials of AI? Who wants to kick us off?
Shall I start?
Yes.
Yeah, I see. I think the keywords actually were pretty good, right? I see a lot of potential in automation, in really raising efficiency, and creating time for really creative stuff then, and that really needs our brains, so that we can kind of automate the boring stuff, or the stuff where it's just from volume wise so immense that we cannot possibly manually do it. So that's where I see the biggest potentials.
And I would love to kind of emphasize that there's so much creativity that you can support then with AI as well. So the automation part is something that is hands down the most important part to like get it done. But then things I cannot draw, like my mother tells me told me like from the beginning that I cannot draw. But with AI now, I'm possible to kind of take my ideas, put them on, well, not paper, but like pixels, and come up with new ideas based on that. And this is something that for someone who cannot draw and cannot or hardly express herself by kind of writing it down, scripting it down, it's a thing actually.
It's funny that you both went the creative direction. And for me, I actually thought of like, oh, it'll be so much easier to make decisions. So like the more boring side of things, but actually like decisions at scale, at large, based on large data sets, real time. That's really exciting to me because it opens up so many opportunities and so much time that we would have spent in the background processing, analyzing, targeting. But yeah, I think it's actually at the intersection of both that it gets really, really exciting.
Yeah, I love this. It's really cool to hear. Natalie,
I was gonna just be like ditto. I think there's like basically no limits to where AI can go. And I mean, the last years, we've seen such crazy developments and like steps forward within AI. And like the sky is the limit. That's really like whatever you can think about creatively, I really see that as potentially being the future. I mean, all of these movies that we saw, you know, of futuristic places are existing now. And I'm just like, wow, it's crazy and exciting. So there's just really no limit of where it can go. That's where I really see it.
great. It's super great to hear about all these opportunities. It's cool to see the different perspectives that we have on this, where you can really run forward with creativity, but also looking at it from a more data-driven perspective or a boring aspect, if we want to call it that. Now I'd love to move into a question on what are the misconceptions with AI? And Natalie, why don't you kick us off?
Sure. I think some of the misconceptions are, and it gets into a little bit of women in AI, that it requires a certain skill set or type to be able to like utilize it or to be able to make sense of it. Like someone who, I don't know, is someone who's really like mathy or very much in like the STEM direction. And that's really not the reality today, right? I mean, it's become so accessible with like GPT and things like this that everyone can use it. And even in the survey that we saw, people who say they haven't, you probably have. You just maybe don't know about it, because so many of the things, solutions, anything online essentially uses machine learning or AI. So yeah, that's how I sort of see it.
I think the success of OpenAI already caters to this question, or to the answer, basically. So the misconception would be it's only for STEM people or for math people or for very just smart people, but the success of it came from being very approachable and being very usable. And that was or is the success that in a way comes together with this tool, that everyone can use it at any time, any point in time, and have a proper success then with the responses. So that's actually I think one of the misconceptions of how AI is being perceived.
I think related to that is also, it's not new. Like
True.
We think AI is like somehow
True.
new and radical and super scary, but in ways it's been around since the 50s, the 80s, the 90s. Like we've seen different iterations of what you would call AI. And of course, some of it is machine learning, some of it is generative AI. But I think now we're moving into a time where it becomes more accessible, but that doesn't make it new or scary or crazy revolutionary.
True.
I think only the fact that everybody can use it and can see results, that's sometimes a little scary, because people might like take the answers for granted. And I mean, we know that you have to take it with a grain of salt in point of, is it really true what is coming out there? And I think that's still kind of like a challenge in having it available for a very wide audience, and people really thinking it's intelligence, but it's actually not. It's It's still computers that generate it.
Yeah, and the consequence of the data you put into it ultimately, right? Yeah.
But that was valid for Google as well in the beginning, right? So when you started asking questions and Google answered stuff in the beginning, so how do you need to validate basically everything, even books, because even what is written in books doesn't mean necessarily that it's true. It's just someone's opinion, or it's just it was a fact in the past and now it's not valid anymore. So we need to validate whatever we read, perceive, consume anyway. So that's valid for artificial intelligence as well.
Yeah. And that also means that humans won't become redundant. I think that's
True.
another misconception, that we're just going to replace everyone with AI, where it's really just a tool, but it's not a replacement for humans.
Absolutely.
And jumping on this topic where you need to validate what's being output by these AI technologies, do you feel that we are more likely to trust it when it comes from especially a named AI technology where you're like, well, of course Siri knows, we've humanized this? Or do you think that we're well equipped to be able to handle that, oh, I really do need to check this?
It depends. Who has watched the movie Alien? Do you remember the computer? What was its name? Mother. When you ask Mother stuff, do you validate what Mother answers? So depending on what name you give the thing, how much experience you give to it, or you think it has, how much input, and what kind of how you grew up, right, to be like primed into the system. Depending on that, depends, I would say.
I think it also goes beyond AI. It's just the internet in
True.
general. Like, how much do you trust it?
Yeah.
And how much do you know to validate your information?
Or even technology more generally, right? There's always been this question of trust. I mean, I think as people in like the industry or within AI, we need to sort of be more like accountable to like the ethics and things like this, and like part of that is guardrails and like all the work that's been done also with GPTs, for example, to ensure that information is not lying or doing things that are like not good or not ethical or things like this. So I think a lot of the ethical questions that are necessary to ask and question like are in the hands of the people who are creating the solutions, and really need to be like taken seriously. And as far as like end users, customers, of course, that's also necessary. But I mean, I see it like any other technology. We all fly planes, for example, but I don't know if all of us know like what actually like the physics or the like how it actually works, or when we use internet, how many of us actually really deeply understand it. So yeah, I see the sort of accountability to ensuring that we're using it in a way that's ethical and like good is in the hands of the people creating it.
And I think that's exactly what our users are also expecting from our platforms. So trust is a very big thing for idealo users, and we've done some user research on how our users would perceive like AI backed functionality, and it's really about trust, and they kind of want to know where it comes from. They want to understand a little bit. So I think even our users are kind of mature enough to already know the risks and handle them in a way, or even expect us to handle them in a very responsible way.
Amazing. I would love to know also what departments or maybe areas of a company do you see that have the most opportunity to utilize AI? Andrea, do you want to start? I can see it itching in her eyes.
Well, as I work in marketing, I'm going to go say marketing. I think in marketing, we have huge potential to work on the one hand, the creative side. So really creating videos, ads, text, translating to all sorts of languages, doing sentiment analysis to really understand where our customers are at, what they need from us, and then also be able to target them better. So at idealo, we're of course always trying to match the right user with the right product and the right offer. And I think there's huge potential that we have a better understanding of what is the right product for this right user segment at what point in time, where they're at in their customer journey, and how can we best deliver our message to them. So what marketing campaign, what channel, what partner do we use, and where do we best spend our budget so that we're, of course, not only making the user happy, but at the end of the day, also ourselves, driving our financial performance. I think there's more than that, but I'm going to leave some room to the rest of the panelists.
Yeah, I can add on this because being responsible more for the front end side, that's exactly where I also see the biggest potential in like guiding the user, like what is really the best offer or the best product for my use case. And I think there's a lot of potential because we have so much data on products and offers, and it's so hard to find a presentation for that data in a very consumable fashion. And I think that's where there's still super high potential in processing this whole data and make it really accessible to the user and really useful.
Natalie?
Yeah, agree. And my team specifically is like the central machine learning engineering team. So we're supporting different teams in essentially enabling them to use machine learning across the organization. And yeah, I don't really see a specific department because all of them can benefit from it. I mean, we're working on like personalization, for example, for the end user in B2C within the team, as well as just sort of automating the different offers that exist within idealo. Engineers benefit from it with Copilot to optimize their work, be able to more quickly get results. So even just as an individual employee, you're able to sort of optimize your experience and utilize AI to work more efficiently and faster and better, coming up with more ideas and things like this as well. Yeah.
Oh, for myself, the answer is quite boring, to be honest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, sorry. You put it quite high. For me, it's AI is a pen, and I can use the pen in the kitchen as a lawyer, as a marketeer, as someone who's in compliance or whatever. So it's a pen. It's a tool. Full stop. So I can use it everywhere. Even the nurse can use it if we had nurses in here. I'd say depending on what you do, you need tools, and AI is a tool.
I don't think that was a boring answer at all. I hope you all did not either. I wanted to also share, if you have questions for the panelists, in Menti, you can see there's an open Q&A section. You can go ahead and add the questions along throughout the panel. You don't have to do it at the end because we'll love to hear from you and also ask questions to our panelists along the way. With that, we kind of talked a little bit about what were the potentials of AI, that AI is really a tool that you can use. And now we'd love to talk about kind of who's behind AI, specifically representation in AI. So my first question is, why is it important to have women working in AI? Natalie, you should answer. You look ready.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it's like any other technology or industry. We're a significant part of the population, right? 50%. And if we're not represented, then the solutions that are created within machine learning or the directions that it goes in terms of developments won't be representing what we want or what we need. We won't be represented. And I mean, you already see that in some of the initial biases that have come through in some of the first prototypes, just because there was less representation of women. We weren't able to utilize them in the same way, for example. So yeah, we're 50+%, 51% of the world population. So it's necessary that we're represented in AI. Yeah.
I also think, like, in addition to the ethical side of things, as a business, wouldn't you want to appeal to like as many people as possible as well? And the more representative your product is of the global population, the more successful it will be. So for me, it's also just like a strategic competitive advantage that everyone should utilize.
For me, AI has to represent basically it has to be a mirror of society in a way, even if it sounds like a sentence that you might have come across already. But we need to have the representation of kids in there, of women in there, of men in there, of everyone who is part of the society actually. And no matter what age, also the age topic is also a topic, so it doesn't matter which sex you have, but also the age, which caters also into building products then later on. So depending whether you have people using your services who are 60 or who are 16 or who are 6, so you need to kind of satisfy their needs and so in the sense of providing services for them as well. Also, when you think of AI in education, for instance, so this is also a topic. So we need to kind of represent AI, and the models and the data in there has to represent whomever will participate into consuming the service. And so there's, for me, not a perfect answer to say why women have to be in there. Everyone has to be in there. In a way, which is also a self-fulfilling prophecy, in a way, we will also have AI within AI sooner or later, you know, because when you create content with AI, it's going to be fed into the system itself, which is weird, but that's how it's going to happen.
I think that makes it more important to make sure that we have diversity early on, though, so we don't start a perpetual cycle of training on data that is already biased.
But I mean, there is an issue within AI, right? That actually, if you look at the statistics, you mentioned it already at the beginning, Katie, only 20% of like people who are within AI are women. So that's like not representative at all of the customers or our population.
There's a funny thing that I looked up before we had this panel, actually, the fun thing, if you allow. Who has heard of the Gemini frag up the other day with Google Gemini? So you have like, you try to solve the bias situation within AI, and you feed it a certain kind of information, and then you say, oh yeah, but that's too many Caucasians, not enough everyone else. And then you start prompting, and what comes out is horrifying, because you had like people were asking questions towards Google Gemini to depict picture-wise Irish families, and all the Irish families were looking like they came out of India, which is a thing, right? In a way, but then in another way, we're complaining about AI having a bias. So as I say, the mirror of society is a self-fulfilling prophecy, but then when you try to break the pattern, to like go in there and put like forced data in there, you start creating other issues than with AI. So we need to be like constantly checking everything that is coming out of there, because otherwise we'll jump into those problems.
I'll just quickly interject, just because we had 20% of the audience say that they don't use AI or haven't think that they use AI. We've been talking a lot about training data and training sets. So maybe would some person on our panel like to explain a little bit this for our audience members that might not know?
I guess you're the perfect person.
Me? Actually, I'm not. I'm what they call a Quereinsteiger. So I'm not a machine learning person. But I mean, when you have lots of information that you feed into a system, whether it's Excel or anything else, and you as you said, perpetually feed the same information in there, and you fine tune it, and you do more training based on that, it's like educating a child. You teach the kid what you learned before, and if you don't like optimize on the teachings schedule, it's the same way AI learns as well. That was the short version of how I perceive it.
Okay.
Not the mathematical version, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. Maybe what I would add, it's just, I mean, essentially when you build or you in machine learning, all of the solutions are a result of the data that you put into the machine, right? And why it's called machine learning is based on the data you provide. It kind of learns what is like right or wrong, what is the correct answer, these kind of things, and with like millions and millions of data points, which it then generates correct answers. So yeah, that's kind of a kind of a minimal explanation of what it does.
Thank you. I hope that helped for the 20% that maybe are not as familiar with the background in it. Of course, we could go on for a long time, get deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, but I hope that high level helps you a little bit. And I think we kind of already started onto a nice question, which is obviously we recognize that there is a bias in AI because it's built on the information that we've given it, which is intrinsically biased. Based off of who builds it, the information that exists, right? You can't put information in that is absent. So with these kind of thoughts and knowledge, can we overcome bias in AI? Ooh, a tricky question.
I would question what even is bias. I mean, we're here right now. We have a certain idea of what fairness is, what bias is, and we can try to overcome that. I think we don't know what we don't know. So certainly now, if we were in the 1800s, we would have a very different idea of fairness. There probably would not be a panel of just female professionals. And I think if we look into the future, we also don't know what a future state of fairness might look like. And since training data is historic data, I don't think we'll ever fully eliminate bias on a global scale. I think all we can do is the best for right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think the Gemini example made it pretty clear that it's really hard to manipulate it in a way to be unbiased or more fair, because this might introduce other mistakes and errors. So I think it's really a challenge to overcome it. And I would only hope that by now, the information that is generated today, maybe still manually generated, is more kind of like unbiased, and that when we feed more current data into those systems, that this might help to overcome bias, instead of using very old data that might be more biased, at least like from our point of view right now. But then again, you need a lot of data points, so you also need to include old data usually in it.
Yeah, I agree. And I would say, I mean, we still need to make our best effort to the ones that we're aware of. Of course, if we can't do anything about things we're not aware of, to ensure that models like integrate data that's less biased, meaning more representative of the population utilizing or which that solution is created for. So although it's hard to mitigate, and like, of course, we're not going to exist, I mean, in a world that doesn't have bias, I think it's necessary to make the effort to see where are the biases, what can we do, how can we really be active there. And actually, interestingly, within AI, a lot of the developments there are led by women. If you sort of do a little bit of research into it, you'll see that there's a lot of women really advocating for ensuring that biases where all of the data is only from men, for example, are like including more representation. And that doesn't mean only having one group, which is the example shared, but actually just making sure it's representative, the data, and not just from one specific group.
I think checking again, because there are different ways to train data. Don't want to go too deep in there because otherwise I'm going to say something wrong, but supervised learning, unsupervised learning, yada, 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 and so on. And I think checking this data again and again, and to see where will I be using this part of data information or this data set, and what do I do with the other one? So like being very aware of which tool, which data set do I use where, in order to like mitigate also by inducing already the wrong data set into the wrong question, or asking even the wrong question maybe sometimes. Because please depict an Irish family, and having like just Indian people showing up might be the correct answer, right? Depending on where you look at. So it might not even be biased at this point. So depending on how you ask the question, what kind of data have you provided, and so on. So it's like a constant learning opportunity for the machine as well.
And I'd love to follow this up. What can users of these AI products do to help make the training sets, the output better? What would your recommendation be?
Feedback. Yeah, very often you have in those tools, you have the opportunity to give feedback. Even in ChatGPT, they ask you, is this, can you work with that, with the output that it provided? Give the thing feedback. This is how it learns as well. One of the ways it learns as well.
I personally always do that, also just because I think it's polite
Yeah,
to like let the machine know that it helped me or that it didn't help me.
but you know, it gets lazy nowadays when you ask please and thank you, and yeah, so be a little more rough sometimes with ChatGPT. Will provide better answers. That's what the internet said.
I did also read that as well, but
Yeah.
I think I'll still also be nice to my ChatGPT. I hope all of you are a little bit inspired then to give a little bit of feedback. As you know, the topic of this panel was more than Siri and Alexa, women's voices in AI. Obviously, Siri and Alexa and the other, I think, popular AI assistants have branched out. You can find now gender neutral, you can find men's voices, you can find different accents within the languages. But if you roll back your mind to when these first came out, they were always women. And what do you think about this, that it was a default woman's AI voice?
I can start. I mean, I think it's kind of perpetuating stereotypes, right? Because obviously the woman is the service provider, the caretaker, and that's why she's kind of the voice of the house and more safe and secure. And I think that's exactly, like, it's a really good example of who do you think is creating those solutions, or the majority of the people creating those solutions. And I mean, of course, it doesn't mean that, like, you know, as a woman, you don't maybe prefer to hear a woman's voice. But the way I see it is it's very much like a perpetuation of like gender stereotypes, in that, oh, the service voice is a woman. But yeah, I mean, it is changing, as you also mentioned, Katie, and you can now have men, but still the names out there of the like biggest AI voices are female names, which is interesting. Yeah.
I mean, you could argue that that also isn't new. So phone operators in the 20s were also primarily women. And that way we've also trained ourselves to have certain expectations. So in a way, we're no different than AI learning on a training set of data, because we do associate, you know, the characteristics of an assistant or someone who's being helpful as warm, emotional, having empathy.
Yeah.
And we do associate that with female voices. And I think we should start there, as questioning our assumption, and then also providing, of course, the set of choices.
Yeah, it's absolutely a representative of our like societal sort of stereotypes and norms, and the things that we value or think are correct in terms of what a woman should typically do or not, or what a man should typically do or not. But I think it's a very good example of exactly AI sort of representing these kind of things within the solutions that are created.
But then maybe the question also to my fellow panelists and moderation, how did you set up your Alexa and Siri at home? Did you like change it to Echo or to computer, or do you still talk to Alexa?
I don't use it actually, to be honest.
Neither do I.
I don't like to speak with my computer now.
That was the first thing that amazed me about computers, by the way. So you don't use them at all?
No.
No one?
No.
Okay,
No.
I use it.
Okay, thank you. We
I'm the
didn't,
one.
that wasn't orchestrated, I just came up with that.
No, I still kept mine in a woman, but it did change. It's I didn't like the American voice, actually, so I picked Irish. So apparently I'm inherently biased against my fellow Americans.
Yeah, no, I use Alexa, and it's very confusing when they come, when I say my name out loud and it cuts me off, and then, hey, wie kann ich helfen? It's kind of, but yeah, so from my own expectation, I would have thought that I would take Echo or computer, but I didn't do. I stuck to the default in a way, without doing it consciously. So I was trained that way as well. So teachers, kindergartners, and so on. So people first, like the first people that you have contact with and that answer your questions are usually women, and just like, as you said. And so just by doing that, initially I stick with Alexa.
And something we've talked about a lot is we've used the words representative, and we recognize that we're wanting AI to be representative of us. But then at the same time, we recognize that we have problems with our society. And if we build something that's representative, maybe that's not actually what we want. We want something that's more aspirational. So how do you view this scale between representative and aspirational in the future of AI?
I think aspirational is also dangerous. It depends on whose aspirations they are, but they're inherently also going to be biased and skewed. So I think you can go down this loop forever.
Yeah, I think if you take, that's kind of my point again, if you take current data and current representation, I think you're already a little bit more on the fair side. Aspirational, I also find very difficult and I just don't really technology-wise really understand how you would do it in a good way, in a good manner. So at least I don't have the imagination that this would really work out. I mean, can create some science fiction stuff and futuristic ideas, but do I want this like as a standard? Not really.
I'm quite excited. So I kind of embrace the whole thing as I go along. I try not to connect too many services to each other, bank account to Facebook and stuff like that. So don't mix too much all of that stuff together. But other than that, I embrace it fully, because I think there's so much potential for the creative part, for the data part, for creating like really good stuff in this world. And I'm trying to get it like to tackle that with a positive attitude, even though it might sound naive, but think of health or reducing the test scenarios. So how many people already could like benefit in terms of health of that out of AI? Not even talking about e-commerce or about journalism at this point, but like reducing the time to kind of save us all from cancer, for instance, things like that, that are like pivotal as a society to tackle, are completely are a thing we need to do in a way. I agree that there are risks and we need to be aware of things, but like, let's save the planet with AI in a way as well. And then on the other hand, how much water does this thing like consume? Right? So we also need to be aware of that. But if we don't toy around with it, we'll never find out.
So I take it here. Oh, sorry, Natalie, do you want to go?
Yeah, I was just going to add, I think, hey, this is the space to be innovative. This is the space where we should be trying new things and exploring. And it's only through that we've gotten to where we are today within AI, right? So yeah, like I think it's a nice thought to be like, okay, how can we be aspirational here? How can we, you know, create a new precedent when it comes to, you know, not being comes to ethics and not being biased or integrative, or ensuring that things are like representative of like our values. I think absolutely we should try things and be creative about that and see if there are new solutions to mitigate those risks and foster that. So yeah, this is the space to try new things. But yeah, I think just one thing Nicole mentioned earlier is like, hey, well, AI is a little bit a representative also of like the current value system and the things that we think are important today. So I think that's something to also just consider, right? It represents what we value now. There's also like cultural elements of that. Obviously, a lot of the data that's within like this data set of OpenAI comes from the Western world and the values within that. And that's of course biased. So yeah, that's just like an interesting element to that. So we can't really get to this truth. Yeah.
I think my takeaway is it's complicated, as is all the great answers to every question is it's complicated. I think we'll have 2 more questions before we jump into the audience questions. So just a reminder, you can already pop them into Menti if you have anything that's tickling your mind after hearing the it's complicated answer. Do you have any advice for women that are interested in entering AI?
Just do it.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Just like play around with it, test your ideas, come up with ideas, and just find ways. And everybody can do it. It's really so easy. And if you don't know how to generate pictures or something, just Google it, and you'll get a good explanation that enables you to also do that. You don't even have to be like an IT professional to start trying. And I think then it's really about the usage of it and the application of AI that makes you successful and potentially also gives you a job.
Yeah, and don't be intimidated, I think.
Yeah.
I would say. So women getting into AI, I immediately thought like development, but actually like just as an end user, that's where you can start. You can play around with the tools that are out there. You can even ask the AI to teach you how to use it. I ask the AI all kinds of ridiculous things all the time.
Yeah.
So don't be intimidated, play around, share your feedback, and talk about it. I think it's very similar to a lot of other fields that women have branched into and asserted themselves. It's just find communities, talk about it, make yourself heard.
Remember,
Yeah.
it's 10.
Ooh, sorry.
Sorry.
I would just say that I think that there's like a misconception that like it's maybe not fulfilling for women or it's not fun. And I can, from experiences only say that it is fun. It's really fun to work with it, and it's really exciting. And it's not only sort of fulfilling needs of men to work inside it, and you can find a lot of joy in working with AI. Would be kind of my advice.
Thanks so much, Natalie. Andrea, I really connect with you on this. In school, everyone's like, oh, there's no stupid questions. But, inevitably someone says something and you're like, oh, that was kind of stupid. But with AI, it's true. You can just ask it. No one's there to judge you. So there really is no stupid questions anymore. So I think it's very cool that you can use AI as an educational tool for yourself along the way as well. And we're going to wrap up my portion of asking questions to the panel, kind of similar to how we did before, because this question will come to you on Mentimeter afterwards. So how do you stay informed with updates to AI, and what are you reading? What are you watching? How are you keeping up to date? It's a fast-moving field.
So I read all the time when I cannot sleep. I read mostly on LinkedIn. Might sound weird, but my LinkedIn bubble and also TikTok, to be very ashamed of, but that's how I get information. And there's so many people teaching about AI on LinkedIn, on TikTok, on YouTube. I don't like YouTube personally, but that's just, it's just another vehicle, another platform where you can learn about AI. So constantly like checking what's on LinkedIn, what publications came up with new information and so on. And this bubble is just so huge by now.
I was going to say LinkedIn as well. Sort of for like the easily digestible, on the go information. I think there's also a lot of good white papers out there. Statista just released a really good one about companies in Germany. And I personally like to look at numbers to sort of understand the trends. And there's a lot of great people on LinkedIn. Going back to my first point, I follow this professor at Stanford University, and she posts a lot of great, easily digestible snippets, also very visual, that really on the go help you understand what's going on in AI without having to read a 20-page essay. I don't think any of us really ever take the time for that, or I personally find it hard. So just a little graphic, a little infographic that tells me what's going on is super relevant.
And beside LinkedIn, which I also use as a source. I just have some subscriptions, like even like old-fashioned newsletter subscriptions, and some podcasts that I really like to listen to. But what I also really, really like is talking to people who actually use it, and using your network. If you know somebody who's like really super innovative and crazy, this is just so refreshing to get real life examples how people use it. That's even more interesting to me, actually, to really see those examples.
Yeah, I would second that. I really love to talk to the engineers in my team about it, because they're just so excited about the developments, and they have this like energy and excitement that's just like infectious. So I would definitely second Nicole's thing of like seeing, like, just, seeing role models, asking them about it, seeing how they utilizes it. It's really like, when they're really excited about it, you just learn from hearing from them passively almost. And there are also communities, right? Like women in AI and things like this that exist and are really open to people who are interested, curious about that. So that's another thing that wasn't mentioned that I would say is another channel.
Amazing. And now we want to hear from you. So I think we'll pop the Menti back up on the screen just so you can have a look. But yeah, if you're interested in learning about AI, where do you look? Where do you see we can crowdsource it? Very exciting. Also, hot tip, with those really long articles, you can also pop them into ChatGPT and get some summary points.
And it's going to tell you to delve deeper into, that's the verb.
Delve.
Yes. I hate it.
Twitter, LinkedIn. Any others? Give it another 30 seconds or so. Oh, nice. Cassie Crosscove. I hope I said that name right. A lot of people on LinkedIn. So anyone have any specific like hashtags? I think they do that on LinkedIn, yeah. Or any specific people that you follow? You mentioned one already.
Yeah, Chip Huyen, Huyen, can highly recommend.
Maybe Ava in the background can type it into Menti for you. Perfect. It's so good to hear. I mean, TDLR AI, amazing podcast, ChatGPT, Hacker News, ARXIV, another TLDR AI, Axel Springer Network's really good for all of our internals. There's an amazing video that actually Nicole shared with me from the Axel Springer Network. So yeah, very cool. And I think, yeah, just networking here today, maybe you'll find someone that can share something. So that's what an amazing opportunity of in-person meetups are. I think now we can jump to our open Q&A section. The first question, I'm going to pick it out of order because I think it just went really, really well with something that Nicole said, which was hearing from people using AI and what they're doing in their jobs. And this question is, what are the features in idealo where you are already using AI?
We started using or experimenting with it in the product creation space. So really, like, because we get a lot of like wild offer data from hundreds and thousands of merchants, and we have to all put it together and build a product out of it, because then only a comparison works. If you can actually say this offer is the same product as this offer, and then you can put it together. And that's a field where I think we're really successful in, at least machine learning and some AI already. And we actually have a ChatGPT plugin. So if you are a subscriber to ChatGPT, you can actually do really great product and price comparison within ChatGPT if you enable the plugin. And we're even leading in that space right now, which is still very, very small, to be honest. It's a niche still, but we learned from it. We get some experience, and I hope we will very soon also do it in product comparison and automated product comparison. And we have tons of other ideas where we want to follow up on.
Natalie, are you still there?
Maybe
Yes, I am.
Okay. We just can't see you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
am-
mean, one more thing, we use it also in our development, of course, like the developers use Copilot.
True.
Internal pen.
But there's, I mean, right now there's like a huge, just because, a huge movement towards even more like sort of use cases for machine learning, and we're really seeing like an increase within idealo, which is super exciting across the board. So yeah, in B2C as well as B2B marketing across the board, which is like really exciting. Yeah.
Amazing. I will also extrapolate your question on behalf of whoever asked the question to Axel Springer Group, because this is where Alex can share a little bit more with her work in generative AI. Maybe are there any areas you see within the Axel Springer Group that are particularly insightful or impactful with their AI use?
So the internal use cases, there are lots of internal use cases also for the journalistic approach. So we have like optimization workflow within with Bild and with Welt. They look into how to support, how to actually utilize this pen better for the journalists. They do that a lot within the CMS. To share a different approach than e-commerce with that one. They also have ChatGPT plugin. They have a tool where they put their article in it and get more metadata out of it, more information out of it, become faster into within their editorial parts or editorial work. That's one example. It's called the Content Analyzer with Sales Impact and in cooperation with Bild, for instance. I myself look together with my colleague into disruptive scenarios. So what could be something that like could be pivotal for us as Axel Springer or one of our brands, either in the positive but also in the negative connotation. Yeah, that's also very exciting.
If you want to hear more, I recommend talking to them afterwards, or if you're online, connect with them on LinkedIn. They're all on LinkedIn. So seems like a good place to also find AI resources. And now I'll jump into the question that has the most upvotes. Provocative question. Funny enough, I think this really matches the question that I already asked, which was whether it's representative or aspirational. So when asking an AI to generate a picture of 10 AI engineers, would you want to see 2 or 5 female faces?
I'm going to reference Ruth Bader Ginsburg here, who said something similar when asked about the US Supreme Court, which is, why not 10?
So she's aspirational in the end, actually.
For me, it would be, so generate a picture of 10 AI engineers will be an answer that is not going to be, it's not going to satisfy me, depending on which tool I use, which pen I use. Midjourney is going to give me a nice mix, maybe. Gemini is going to, who knows what, come up with. So usually if I want to be satisfied by the AI, I need to give it more information than just the 10 engineers. I need to tell it where to put them and which background and so on and so forth. So more information is better for the output that I want to generate, if I don't want to iterate like 1,000 times over this question. So in a way, it's however I shout in, it's going to come out. Is it this? Yeah, analogy. Yeah. So I would love to see whatever I ask it to tell me, to give me.
I think in the future I would actually like to see 5 female faces, because it's reality. I hope that we develop in that direction, that we see more female engineers in general in the engineering space, because has always been a challenge. It is still a challenge to get female engineers, and that's just the same with the AI engineers. So in the future, I hope we have that in reality, and then I expect it to also paint the reality.
So representative, but an aspirational view of representative.
That's true. You got me.
Natalie, how about you?
So yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah, I don't really have anything to add. Would just agree.
Cool. Sorry, you're in the clouds, so I'm just going to ask you. So you. You're our AI voice now. I think our next question, I don't think it'll show up there, but it's what do you think about the lawsuit of the New York Times to OpenAI in terms of data ownership? Data sharing and ownership can be the next challenge of AI. Of course, I'll try to repeat it so everyone else can hear, but.
You mean informational background?
Oh, resume, Sue.
Well, wait, let me reread it. What do I think about the lawsuit? The truth is probably, and yeah, I know I'm on.
Do you have background for it though, for them? Like what the lawsuit's about? Yep.
So well, it's basically what it says over here. So it's about data ownership, and New York Times sues OpenAI over using information that was, how do you say? Published, yeah, allegedly used without any knowledge of, and so on. So those large training data sets from the past, I don't think that someone signed up for them and knew what would happen with them in the future, right? So whenever you were sitting in university and they asked you to provide information about when you arrived, with which train and so on, it might be also part of one of the data sets that is nowadays used in whatever other context and circumstance. And that's one of those examples. So not cool, but realistic, unfortunately. And yeah, you can quote me on not cool.
I would say that, I mean, data privacy and things like this are topics across like our industry, right? And like the regulations related to that. And I think that there's thankfully developments in ensuring that the data you utilize is used for things that you're okay with and consenting to. And that's just something that's like something we need to navigate as we learn again about these tools and the consequences of these tools. And I think it's good that these things come up in a legal setting, because all of the legal frameworks still need to be created to accommodate for AI, because there's still like not so much understanding of what they do or how they work and things like this. So I actually don't see it as a negative thing, because they're just creating the sort of precedents and processes to ensure that we're behaving ethically when we use AI and doing things that are adhering to the sort of societal morals and principles we want to live to. So yeah.
I also just think, if nothing else, it's a cautionary tale also for the end user. So anything that you put into the AI, unless you're paying for some sort of premium version, will be used to train it. So please don't enter like sensitive company information into public tools.
Yeah, but and on the other hand, we really need to make sure that still like content, high quality content has to be paid for in some way. And if content that is published is being just used without paying for it, nobody will create high quality content anymore, and the models will all suck in the future. So I think we have to really find models and maybe laws that still ensure some kind of high quality content creation.
Amazing. I will ask one last question. We have more questions, unfortunately, on my iPad that we won't be able to answer, but I recommend if you're here in person and you had a question, please feel free to approach the panelists during our amazing snacks and drinks afterwards. If you're at home, reach out to them on LinkedIn. I'm sure they're happy to give you an answer. And then the last question that we'll ask is, you mentioned how the low proportion of women in AI is, which was around 25% AI specialists. So what would you say needs to happen to increase the number of women in AI? Final words.
I think workplaces need to ensure not to discriminate against women and to support them accordingly with their policies. I think a lot of the places that are still major hubs of AI or technology to begin with don't necessarily offer that.
I think you need to kind of, in a way, lose that fear as a person to not be. Women in general, when we try to sign up for a job or we want to apply for a job, we look all of the requirements. Do I fulfill them or not? Fuck it. So go for it. And that same thing goes for AI as well. Just go for it, because no one is gonna like put it on a plate for someone in a way. So you need to kind of go and hunt it down for yourself. But that's a very general, that's not specifically for AI, that's for everything else as well in a way.
Yeah, I think it's really like for engineering, it's just exactly the same, but also I think as society we have to start much earlier already in school and in family education, in the society itself, because I mean I do have 3 kids, but only my son is really into computer science, and my daughter is not, and that's definitely, I mean I'm a role model there even, but still the school, the friends, all around my kids are still very much gender specific in the choices. And I think it's so deep in our society that prevents like even the younger generation to be really like a 50-50 match. And maybe it's okay, but
you know, Barbie is an
Actually,
astronaut and a,
yeah,
and a
that's
medic
true.
and a physicist. And
So maybe it is changing slowly, but I think it still needs a lot of time.
Yeah, I would also say it's a systemic, right? It's like in all of our systems, all of our processes, like gender biases or these like perpetuated stereotypes. So I don't think it's like a one answer thing. And I think we are like making steps forward, right? I mean, you are seeing increased percentages of women in leadership, for example, and more representation within these spaces, thankfully. So there are steps in the right direction, but I would say, yeah, there's still a lot that needs to be done there on a systems level. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And if we can give a big round of applause for our wonderful panelists today. Just as a quick recap of, I think, what we learned is there's a lot of potentials of AI. It's almost endless, and the opportunities are ever changing and constant. Can we overcome bias? It's complicated, is the answer that I would take away of it. And that there are lots of resources for you to learn about AI. And one of the best ways is to just get started by using it. And don't forget to give feedback. Always helpful. The recording will soon be available online. I believe will be shared on idealo channels, of course. And thank you again so much for attending here in person as well as online, and looking forward to mingling over some drinks and food with you all in person. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Katie.